Hi, my name is Priscilla Oliveras, here with Her Perfect Affair, and you're watching Author's Voice.
Author's Voice, connecting authors to the world. This is Sonali Dev, your host on Lit with Love, our show where we bring you romance and women's fiction authors. We have with us today our host and my dear friend Priscilla Oliveras with her book, A Perfect Affair. And I'm going to pass this on to Priscilla to take us into the book and tell us a little about it. But I want to say before I get started, Priscilla, that I always think, when I think of Priscilla, I think of my sweet, kind, and quietly badass friend. And the book is pretty much a snapshot of you. So I'm going to let you talk about it in a minute, but first I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping. The book is from Zebra Shout in Kensington, so thank you so much, the team at Kensington, for getting us the books in time and for sending us Pris. If you're watching us on Facebook Live first, I'm really sorry we're a little bit late. We had some technical difficulties, and thanks for sticking with us. Any questions you have, just type them into the comments, and Priscilla will be happy to answer them. And of course, the book is just $4.99, worth so much more than that. So please order the books on authorsvoice.net, and Priscilla will sign them for you. Okay, so Pris, thanks so much for being here. And you want to tell us a little bit about Rosa and Jeremy's story?
Yes. So Her Perfect Affair is the second book in a trilogy. It's the Match to Perfection series, in which you get to meet the three Fernandez sisters. Yasmin's the oldest, Rosa, Lily's the youngest. And Rosa's book, Rosa is she's a librarian. She's our shy but responsible one. If you want something to get done, then you give it to Rosa and she gets it taken care of. But at the start of the book, we kind of learn that she's itching a little bit to maybe feel, or at least experience, what it would be like to step outside of her comfort zone a little bit. She's kind of been nursing a crush on Jeremy. He's a family friend for several years, and when she finds out that he's about to be going overseas for several months, she decides to take a leap. A little bit later, she realizes maybe it should have been a baby step. And Jeremy, who has been interested in Rosa and waiting for some kind of sign from her, takes that leap with her. And pretty much the rest of the story, I think Publishers Weekly had a good line that I thought kind of encompassed it. And really, Her Perfect Affair is a story about two good people having to make really difficult decisions and taking a lot of their family, themselves, their dreams into consideration. So I think it's something that a lot of people will hopefully be able to identify with, if not the exact situation, then at least similar situations.
Yeah, and it's what they said is so true, because I kept thinking as I was reading the book that it's a story of such normal people, like your friends, yourself. Usually when we think of romance, and I was going to say we think tropes, and this is certainly tropey in a very familiar and comforting sense for readers, but the characters themselves are so everyday and so cozy, so like us, that there's absolutely nothing contrived about it, as sometimes can happen in books. So that's I love the comfort of that. But the other thing about the book that I loved, this one and Yaz and Thomas's story, was the family and these beautiful bonds that they have. And I wanted you to talk a little bit about where that comes from, because I know you're from a close-knit family, and you have these three beautiful girls, which is you can totally see that in the book. So tell us a little bit about where that comes from.
I think a lot of people have asked me, are the three sisters, because you have three girls, and I would have to say Yasmin came to me first. And as she and I spoke, and I learned a little bit more about her family, her familia, Probably subconsciously, because I have 3 daughters that came to the surface. But yes, I'm really close with my family. I think overall, one of the themes, and maybe because it's so important to me, my family they're blessings. Sometimes they're not a blessing, and I think overall, like the dynamics of a family are so, at least for me, is so important in my life. And because I put so much into the books, I feel that comes as well. And so yes, I think mostly in the trilogy, the Fernandez familia and the sisters and their madrina, the godmother, and you meet Papi, and Mommy's not in book 1, but you learn a little bit more about her in book 2. And so I think those family themes, because for a lot of us that our family plays a big role in our life. So again, I think feeding a little bit off of my experience, but also trying to, hopefully create a story that others could identify with, or that others, if they don't necessarily identify, that they enjoy being in this story world and being a part of the Fernandez familia.
Yeah, because you don't want to leave them. You want to, stay in there with them, and that's lovely. Yes, you do. And there's 2 scenes in particular that I was thinking about. There's this one scene when the sisters, every scene when the 3 sisters are together on the page is magic. There's this beautiful chemistry between them. They have very distinct personalities. And we'll come back and talk a little bit about the whole birth order and stereotypes and cultural stereotypes. But I did want to talk about, I think, these 2 scenes that are very powerful in both his family and hers. And one is the first time she meets his family, where the undercurrents are so strong because as families, all the stuff we carry into that scene. So there's that one, and then there's a really great foil between that scene where she sees his parents for the first time, and when the 3 sisters are kind of finding out about her situation after she leaps.
Yes.
So talk to me about, the 2 scenes I'm talking about. So they're really well done and very layered. You want to talk a little bit about
Sure. I think part of one of the things that they deal with are their different family dynamics. And Jeremy comes from, he's an adoptive son of a wealthy Chicago family. Rosa is from the suburbs, more modest. And so when she steps into Jeremy's world, she's already a little uncomfortable because of the circumstances and the consequences. But as you implied, there's an undercurrent. There's some tension that Jeremy has to learn how to figure out, how to face, how to deal with in order. And Rosa challenges him at some point. Before you can come and be a part of this familia, before we can create a familia with our child, spoiler alert, you find that out right away.
When you leap.
Yes, when you leap.
You land.
Yes.
We're getting euphemistic.
But so she actually challenges him that before you can start creating and think about being a father here, the father that I would need you to be, maybe you need to be able to come to terms with things with your father, with both of your, his fathers, his birth father and his adoptive. And so I tried, because when Rosa goes into that scene, she doesn't know about the background, and she, so that sets her, that makes her even more uncomfortable, because you can tell that there's something going on that everybody else in the room knows except for her. And so for me, I think I wanted that mostly for her. She needed to feel that little bit of uncomfortable, and it also then, because of that makes her, like the next scene a few minutes more is when she really confronts him, and she's not this shy, reserved person anymore, because she's realizing she needs to have these difficult conversations. So she pushes herself too. And so that kind of came out of that scene. The scene with the 3 sisters, I just love the girls together. And I wanted to show, this is when Rose is revealing, and at the same time, I don't want the sisters to be in these stereotypes, like stuck in their places. So I tried to turn the tables a little bit. Maybe the one that you would think would might not understand might have been Lili as the youngest, but the tables are flipped, and the one who is more shocked is Yasmin. And so it was important to me, and I hope it comes across on the page, maybe because I see it with my girls, I feel it with my family. No matter what's happening in the Fernandez familia or in my family, I know that when push comes to shove, my sister or my brother are going to have my back. And that's how it is with the sisters. That's a blessing that they have. And so I wanted to get that on the page without being too sappy. So hopefully.
And they're not at all sappy. They're like all families are. They have annoying things about them, and they have, their fights are pattern fights while still being surprising in some ways, and so all of that is great. And I also love the fact that this is set so deeply in Puerto Rican and Latinx culture. And we were talking about this some, and I do want to talk about your publishing journey, because we don't see a whole lot of Latinx romance, and we want to see much more than we see. So I do want to talk about your journey there. But before that, I'll share this conversation that we just had at lunch, where when I started reading the book, after having read Yaz and Thomas, when I started reading it and I realized Jeremy is white, I had this moment when I went, I wanted a Latinx hero and heroine. Like, why is Jeremy white? And he, and so I had this little moment of disappointment, and I asked you why you made that choice, which, as you read the book, you totally get why you made the choice. He's such a fabulous hero, and he's a good guy hero, and we'll come back and talk about good guy heroes, because we both really love good guy heroes. So you want to talk a little bit about how that works, and also your journey into being published, because this is your second book, but your first series.
Yes. So I actually think the story I shared with you is I have a Latina friend who had come over, and with Rosa and with Yasmin, I had the time before I started writing, I made a collage. So I printed out their pictures, different things that reminded me of them. For this book, there was a Mac computer because Jeremy's in IT, and there was a baby and that kind of thing. And one of my girlfriends came over and she saw the collage and she asked me, "What is that?" And I explained it to her, and her first question was, "Well, how come he's white? How come he's Anglo and he's not, he's not a Latino?" And it stopped me for a second, because honestly, that's just how he was to me. And one thing that's important to me is my world is not all Latinx, people, and that was important to me with my writing. So Jeremy is who Jeremy is because in book one, when Yasmin was sharing with me that there was a neighbor in New York who was a friend of hers and helped her out, this is how Jeremy appeared to me, and so that's how that's his background. It's not anything. There's not a time where I feel like, okay, I need to create this kind of character. It's just in talking with the ones that have already come to mind, this is kind of what my imagination comes up with. And as far as the wanting to write that multicultural world, I think what I had shared before, I started writing a long time ago. Then raising kids and all of that. So it's taken me a while to get to, thankfully, Kensington wanting to publish the series and saying yes, and they've been fabulous to work with. I will say my first books, the first two books, which will never see the light of day, thank you, I realized, one, I started really young. I was an avid romance reader, but those beginning books were kind of mimicking what I was seeing on the page. And it wasn't until I realized, or I started to maybe own what I wanted, or maybe I felt more comfortable or more confident. I don't really know what the right word would be, but I realized that I was trying to recreate something that I thought was what everybody needed to, what everybody wanted versus what I wanted to tell. And so my later books, and I think the books that then started to find a little bit of contest success or whatever, are the ones where I was being more true to the characters that were in my mind and trying to create the worlds that I live in. My dad was in the military, so we moved around a lot. So I was used to diverse people living on base, and I can speak Spanglish. I'm fluent in Spanish, but I can switch into Spanglish, which would annoy my abuela because she didn't speak English. But so it's important to me, and like you said, I think right now there's a big push that we need more, not just that we need more books with diverse characters, but that there are a lot of diverse authors out there that have stories to be told. And I think a common analogy that we're all hearing is that there's enough room at the table for all of us. It doesn't mean I'm going to slide you off the bench, and you can't sit here anymore. We all have beautiful stories, and there are plenty of readers out there that want to hear them. If we just get an opportunity to tell them.
And the fact that diverse books is one thing, and then own voices books is another thing, and you cannot shove one under the other.
Right.
And diverse books are only meaningful if own voices are getting heard also.
Yes.
So most certainly, and you can see it in little things, right? In a book written by you, writing a Latinx character or a family is different from, because there's generational memory, and there is your abuela. I say this not as well as you do. Is a white author writing that story, or an Indian author writing that story, doesn't have that abuela who couldn't, or it would be an Aji in my case, who could only speak in one language. And the stories she told us, and that internalization that goes with own voices, comes through in these books, and comes through really beautifully. So
I hope so.
Yes, and it's important work, right? And so we do have one question, but before, and I think it's from your sister. Speaking of familiar, so before we get to that, I don't want to forget, since we are talking about Latinx romance, I want to give you a chance to talk about your Four Chicas.
Oh, yes. So there are, we have 3 other author friends of mine that are Latina. We have a group on Facebook. It's called Four Chicas Chat. It's just, it's a Facebook for authors and readers and people who like to, we talk about books, but we also talk about entertainment. We talk about the things that are important in our lives, the things that make us laugh. So we ask, if you're looking for a fun place to hang out with authors, I will say yes, we do talk about our culture. We talk about really anything that comes up. So look for us on Facebook. It's the number 4 Chicas Chat. But out of that, we're hoping we've have that hashtag Latinx ROM, so short for romance, just as a way. Really, what we talk about amongst ourselves, and I'm sure you hear a lot about that. Like success for you is success for all of us, kind of thing. So it's mostly just another place to find support. It's another, if you're an author, another place to be supportive. If you're a reader and you want to ask questions about, find out more about author's life and about our characters and that kind of thing, Four Chicas Chat is one of many places that you can go. But for us, it's really the 4 of us. It's Alexis Daria and Mia Sosa and Sabrina Soul and myself. And we've, yes, we're all Latinas. Yes, we write romance, but we're much more than that. And I think that's kind of what we're trying to support each other, and as well as other Latinas.
Exactly, and I think it's a great place to go to get to know you, and to get to know the beautiful stories, because they are very much your stories, but they're like all the other stories we like to read. And so there's that lovely opportunity to get to familiarize ourselves with the brains and the world behind those stories. So I think that's just absolutely lovely. I'm going to go to Jackie's question. Thank you, Jackie, so much for sending the question.
Thanks,
You're a good sister.
Yes.
And the question is, of the 3 Fernandez sisters, of the Match to Perfection trilogy, she has everything right.
I know,
That's amazing. My family doesn't always. That thing you write, those people.
Oh.
No, I'm not. My
She's my beta reader, so I actually thought she was going to say, do you have a really good beta reader that you want to plug? But
please do plug your very good beta reader.
It's her. It's my sister.
And so she wants to know which one is your favorite heroine and why.
This is like asking a mom which
Yes.
child is her favorite. And I'm going to have to do the political route and say that there's a little bit of each of them that I wish I had, right? There's a little bit of each of them that I would praise. Yasmin is just so confident, or that's how she comes across as so confident. So I think that is what I would love to own that Yasmin has, that even when she's not, everybody around her thinks she is. And so I love that. Rosa, that quiet strength. I mean, you said, thank you, that you think I want to be that way. So I strive to be that way.
You are.
Lily has that. She has a good heart that she hides behind a funny sense of humor, or being the. And when you read her book, you find out a little bit why she has allowed herself to become the jokester of the family. How she kind of fell into that role. The same way in Rose's book, you learn how and why she fell into the role that she plays within the family dynamics. So as much as of a non-answer as this is, I don't think I could really. It's probably whichever one I'm writing, whichever story I get to play in, because really that's how. Adulting, we have all these other responsibilities, but there's so many times where I wish like all of that could just go away, because I really just want to be in my office playing with my characters, and I don't need food and I don't need drink. I don't even need chocolate. If I could just get to play with them a little bit longer.
I don't know if I would give up chocolate, but almost everything else I would give up. But no, that's absolutely the perfect answer, because it's not political at all. It's our opportunity to talk about what we love most. And I do this with my kids too, right? I kind of try to subvert the conversation into what I love most about them.
Yes.
Being smart kids, they don't buy it. But with
Right.
books,
Yeah, no.
with books, it's absolutely true. I mean, I can't imagine. I'm always impressed. Yeah, I'm always impressed when authors are asked which is your, I guess if you've written 100,
maybe.
yeah,
Yes.
then you can go like, okay, boom, you know that one. Otherwise, it's just like, oh no, like the rest of the characters would kill me.
Yeah, I know. I feel guilty. So.
Okay, so I feel, I don't want to harp on. Actually, I do want to harp on. It's the most beautiful thing about this is the fact that it's in this set so authentically in this culture, and so I always wonder. Because with myself, I have South Asian stories that I will never tell, like where I feel like that one stereotype, even though it is authentic to the culture, has been overdone to a point. And for me, it's always, arranged marriage is one of those. Like that's a story that's been told to death. I don't want to tell it. I don't want to read it anymore. All of that. Like it's. That's my personal thing, right? Which is me not saying that others shouldn't write it. So what is your Latina story that you've had about enough of and you don't want told or will never tell?
I guess I'm not really good at saying never, right?
Well,
and I would say there's so few out there that I just want to see I want to see good ones, and whether they're written by Latinx authors or whether they're written by a non-diverse person, as long as it's authentic and it's real, and it's not the stereotypes. For myself, I guess maybe because I'm just starting out, so I don't want to already limit myself and say I'm not gonna do that. There's a lot of, I think The Maid or The Gang, right? So, and because I don't know that lifestyle, I'd have to do a lot of research. So I would say I'd probably shy away from that, from writing that, because I would worry, would I be able to write it authentically, or I'd have to dive into a lot of research to make sure that my book was not continuing the stereotypes that are out there. So I would stay clear of that right now, but that doesn't mean that next month I get an idea and I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I'm doing some research because this guy really wants me to tell his story, or this girl really wants me to tell her story. But overall, I think it's just a matter of doing your research and talking to people. And if you can go, visit, or gosh, with the internet right now, we can find out so much. So
yes, no, but that is that's the perfect answer. That anything when done well, is what it's about. But it is true. It's true that popular culture picks up the three things, about and and I'm so glad that you kind of were honest with that, with that answer. So that's great, because I was also going to ask you, what is it about your culture that you want to show? But I think that's obvious in your books.
I hope so. Yeah, and they're going to be different facets. I had a great time writing the Christmas anthology, the Christmas novella, because I got to revisit a lot of Christmas traditions from when I was a kid, and we would spend the holidays in Puerto Rico, and I listened to Spanish, parranda music, carol music the whole time. So, I was in that world, and with my music. So, really, mostly, I guess I would say someone who's Puerto Rican might have some other different things that they want to bring in their book. So for me, it's been a beautiful thing, relearning some aspects, sharing it with my mom and picking her brain about things, and so hearing her talk about memories that she remembers from a kid. Overall, just writing the books has been a joy, because I'm learning a little bit more about myself. I'm learning a little bit more about my own culture, and I'm hopefully putting it in a way in the book that it's not a textbook, but that this is a part of their lives, and it's just an aspect of, they're not just three Latinas and that's it, right? That being Latina is part of who they are. So I hope readers finish feeling like maybe they learned a little bit more about my culture, or they can appreciate it a little bit more. I hope.
Like we visited.
Yes, I hope so.
I felt like I visited with your family, and I felt that way with both of them. Again, with this is also, multicultural as a term is often used as, like I'll write a purely Indian family and two Indians, and people will say the book is multicultural. It's not. It's Indian, but this one is multicultural because there's a little bit of the two the communication between the races a little bit in this
Rosa's.
one, and it was done really, really well, because again you don't resort to the stereotypes on either side, and we talked about that, and I'll give you a chance to talk about that. But you referenced Pride and Prejudice, which is
when they play Jeopardy. They play Book Jeopardy.
When they play Book Jeopardy, but also in terms of the pride being heard between the two of them, and I love that, because of course as soon as you throw Pride and Prejudice at me, I'm like, yes. so that the reverse prejudice that she also projects onto him. So you want to talk about that a little bit?
I think, in the beginning, from the first scene, she's just expecting some kind of behavior or some kind of thoughts from him. So there's that little bit of, as much as maybe we don't want someone to project something on us, Rosa does err in the sense that she's expecting that, to be not considered. Or when she's going to go visit his family and they're riding up in the elevator, she's already thinking of the negative thoughts that they're going to have about her before she even gives them a chance to. So I think that's something that she has to learn. And I think at the end she realizes, here she's been pushing Jeremy to make a change, but and she's made some, but she hasn't. She has to realize that what she needs to do to take that last step that Jeremy has been trying to get her to take for a while.
Yes, and done it so well, and just that whole, you don't hit the consent thing with a bat, but it's done very beautifully, where he's such an ideal of how a man should approach consent and how consent should be approached in a relationship. So, and that's one of the reasons why I have such a soft spot for.
That part's really important to me. The consent that he thinks about that. I think just in general. Hopefully, in all of our books, that's another thing that a lot of romance writers that we talk about. Yes, how do we show that consent within our books, and what's important? I think as a mom of 3 girls, and one of my daughters was influential in her college with 2 other young ladies starting a group called I Always Get Consent at Arizona State University. So that was important to me to not be a mom with a hammer, like you said, but hopefully because Jeremy would think about that.
Yeah, to have no ambiguity in anyone's mind that this is a man who thinks about consent, right? Which is I think very, very well done, and so kudos on that.
Thank you.
There is one question I want to talk about that some more, but Stephen says, will Abuela get a romance in this?
Will Abuela get a romance? Not in this series. I will tell you that I have thought about. There's a part of me that would really like to write Mommy and Papi's love story, whether it's a full book or it's a short story that I kind of give away. I'm waiting for a pocket of time, but Papi really means a lot to me in book 1. I still get teary with that book thinking about it, and you learn a little bit more about Mommy in Rosa's. So there is that part of me that would love to get to see their happily ever after, or they're coming together. So at some point, maybe as soon as I can get a breather with deadlines right now, so I'm not saying no, but stay tuned.
That's great.
Sign up for my newsletter and you'll know when it's coming out.
That's great. And before, I think we have a few minutes left, but with the, coming back to the nice guy and the consent thing a little bit, it's especially important in this book, I think, because it's also a friends to lovers story.
Yeah.
And that's where, where they're struggling so hard because there's already familiarity.
Mm-hmm.
And so the boundaries are already fuzzy. He's already part of their family. Right. And so it becomes even more, I think, the way that you handle it becomes important because he has to, that sense of not crossing boundaries becomes more fuzzy.
He doesn't want to lose, and I think he voices that, or at least to himself at some point. He, as a friend, he enjoys being able to be a part of their familia and the society that that they have, and so he does worry about that. As much as he wants to move forward with Rosa, he doesn't want to lose that either. And it was important to me to show how much Jeremy respects her. That that he wants to allow her to make choices. At the same time, she pushes him. I think there comes a time where he doesn't push, but he just says, "Hey, this is how it is, and this is me on the line, and now it's up to you," kind of. And
yes,
so.
I mean, I will say that I had a moment where I was like, "Girl, I mean, hello,
yes.
Have you seen him? Have you seen how he treats you?
Yes.
Wake up!" So,
yes.
So really well done, Pris.
Thank you.
It was lovely. You want to quickly tell us what's coming next? Because I want you to talk about Diego.
Yes.
So tell us what's happening with Lily's story.
Okay.
And also what you're reading right now, and some quick recommendations as we.
Yes.
Please.
So Lily's story, Lily's hero is Diego. When we get Lily's story, it comes out at the end of this year. It's a December release, and we've kind of flash forward 4 years, so you get to see Yaz and Tomas and Rosa and Jeremy, and they may or may not have more children. So you'll have to read it to find out. Lily is graduated. She's now a victims advocate, working in Chicago. She's actually living in Jeremy's condo, and she comes across Diego, who is a cop from the Humboldt Park area, and they're kind of working a case together. So the title of that book is Their Perfect Melody. Diego plays the classical Spanish guitar. And so it's kind of the story of Lily with her rose-colored glasses and him with his street-smart cop attitude. If they can figure out how to mesh, then maybe they just might make perfect music.
And if you need a beta reader,
Yes. So that's Lily, December. And then actually in November, I have a novella that'll be coming out in Ferd Michael's Christmas. It's called A Season to Celebrate. And in that one, you get to meet a Fernandez cousin. Julia comes over to visit the girls from Puerto Rico, and she comes over. She stays for an internship. Secretly, she's hoping to be able to stay, but her family doesn't know that. And her hero is Benjamin Thomas. He's a former Cubs baseball player, and he's a pitcher. And they're working on a fundraiser for a youth center here in town.
Okay,
So
and
that's
I'm going to apologize that we don't have enough time to let you talk about your favorite baseball. But before I take us out and announce upcoming shows on Author's Voice, quick recommendations. What have you read recently that you've loved?
Well, I have on my Kindle, like Waiting, Mia's book. Mia just had her second book in her series. It's called Pretending He's Mine, and it is jam-packed with tropes. So that's waiting for me. But I just got in the mail Falconese. Yes. So
My Last Love Story.
Yes.
And we did do.
I watched that one.
Yeah.
So I have those two waiting for me. I'm just trying to get through copy edits right now.
You
so
and me both. Mine's edits.
so as soon as
yeah.
I have a beach day coming to me, I know I do. I deserve a beach day.
You do deserve a
So,
beach day.
we'll see.
And that's Mia Sosa.
Yes, Mia
so-
Sosa, and her book is Pretending He's Mine. It just came out like last week. Yes.
That is great. I can't wait
Or
to
maybe
read it.
earlier this week. It's kind of a blur, but
Okay.
but you can get it now.
That's great. So thank you so much. Again, Priscilla's book is Her Perfect Affair, and it is available from Zebra Shout for $4.99. We have signed copies, so please order them and read these beautiful books. And thank you so much for joining us. This is Sonali Dev, and I'm going to take you out with upcoming shows on Author's Voice. And they are on Stranger Than Fiction. Author Ace Smith drops by to answer your questions about his new book, The Pitcher and the Dictator. This is on April 20th at 3 p.m. On Solved, I love how they do solved with the exclamation mark. Libby welcomes author Sebastian Rotella to discuss his latest thriller, Rip Crew, on April 27th at 2 p.m. And again on Stranger Than Fiction, Dan Weinberg will speak with author Craig Simmons about World War II at Sea on May 5th at noon. Again, if you have questions, go to authorsvoice.net and tune in for our shows. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Priscilla. Thank you, Kensington. And we'll see you next time.
Adios.